coming up next.
How are you helping the family member contribute positively rather than negatively?
Yep, great point. So they have to remain positive. They have to be that support system for that individual, even though I understand it can be extremely challenging because maybe they've done it a dozen times and they feel like they've been failed every time, or maybe they've been stolen from or whatnot. Whatever it could be with that certain dynamic. So you can continue to protect yourself, because I think that if you're a family member or a loved one or a close friend or something like that, you still need to protect yourself, but you have to show that support to the person that's working on it.
Welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast, where the chains of fixing and striving are broken and joy is rediscovered in Christ. You are here because you know there's more for you, a life beyond addiction's chaos, rooted in God's peace and promises. This is the place where Christian women like you learn to release the weight of fixing and striving and instead lean into God's strength to create a home filled with love, grace, and hope. She is clothed with strength and dignity. Proverbs 31:25. That's you. You may not feel like it yet, but you are stronger than you know. And God has so much more for you than carrying someone else's addiction. Here, we'll uncover how to set healthy boundaries with love and a little humor. Find resilience and grace in the messy moments of life. Celebrate small victories and embrace joy like never before. Lean into God's promises for restoration and strength, because He's not done with your story or your loved ones. This is your invitation to rise up, embrace your worth in God's kingdom, and take back what's been stolen by addiction: your peace, your joy, your future. Your faith is the foundation, and your boundaries are the bridge, and God's truth is your guide. I'm Tanya, your host and fellow traveler on this journey through the chaos of addiction. I'm here to cheer you on, equip you with tools that work, and share the truth that's changed my life. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Together, we'll uncover how to create safe, loving space for healing, starting with your own heart and home. By setting boundaries, trusting God's plan, and embracing His truth, you can reclaim your joy, your peace, and your family's future. Then you will be able to stand firm for your family and legacy as a kingdom daughter, a woman who can laugh at the days to come, knowing her identity is secure in Christ. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and get comfortable. Let's walk this journey together. We're about to take back what's been stolen, create a safe, healing space for you and your family, and rediscover the joy God has waiting for you.
Welcome to Faith Over Addiction. I have Trent Carter. He is a nurse practitioner. He is a starter of a treatment center and recovery center. He's going to talk to us more about that. He's soon to be a published author, and he is in one of the states that it is really hard to get resources for. So he is doing excellent work down there. So Trent, tell us a little bit more about how you got started in recovery work and what your journey was.
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having me on here. Super excited. So I'm a nurse practitioner, and I'm also board certified in addiction medicine. And there's a long version of how I got started, and there's a short version. So, I can start with the short version. And basically, I'm from Texas. My wife is from New Mexico. And so that's how I wound up here. Being a nurse practitioner in Texas, I have to practice underneath a doctor, whereas in New Mexico, I do not. And so that was a big reason why we moved here. So it's very strategic. And whenever I started working, at first I was just doing contract work because I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do. And so I was doing a lot of going into these individuals' homes. And I was seeing, people that were struggling with substance abuse, literally boots on the ground. I'm seeing this happen because I'm going into those communities. I'm even going into their homes. I'm seeing it. I'm hearing it. So I started looking around at what resources were available, and it's not much. So I started digging more, and I started, asking local officials and things like that. And there was hardly anything. in this kind of southeast corner of New Mexico. Right now, I'm talking mainly about Roswell, New Mexico. Anyways, I decided to open a clinic, Renew Health. So fast forward a few months and we open Renew Health, and it's an outpatient addiction recovery clinic. We also do mental health as well. And at this point, we're going on 4 years. We'll call it 3.5. And we've opened multiple locations. We service the entire state of New Mexico, and we've treated thousands of patients.
How? So New Mexico, I don't think is the poorest state in the union, but it's close.
Yeah.
How are you? This is a lot of problems when families do go to get help. How are you funding this? Where is this coming from?
Most of my clientele is going to be Medicaid. I don't have an exact number for you, but easily 90%, if not higher, is going to be Medicaid. I do have a few patients that have like commercial insurance. Let's say you're Aetna or Cigna, something like that. But the majority are going to be Medicaid. And that's one positive thing for New Mexico is the Medicaid's really good here. And, unfortunately, a lot of the kind of demographics that fall into substance abuse have Medicaid. Now, that's not, I don't want to stereotype. Look, I've got individuals that are very high performing, that are very successful, very wealthy even. And that's the thing about this addiction, substance abuse, mental health. It does not discriminate. It does not discriminate.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about the high performing. How are you? I know you're treating the person who is suffering with the substance abuse disorder, however they're framing that. How are you also supporting the family as they have folks coming in to see you?
Yeah, peer support. So we have, certified peer support on staff as well. It's very important that the family get involved and in tune, because it's not just the patient, right? Or the individual that's struggling. It's that ripple effect of those that are around them. And so often the family needs help, counseling, guidance, resources. And also, if the family can be better educated and have a better idea of how to respond to certain situations or how to support this individual that's struggling, they're then going to be a greater support system for someone that's going through treatment.
Give us some stories. What have you seen turn around? Because I know you've seen some turnaround.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I'll tell you that there's a lot of success stories, and it's truly incredible because you can see someone come in that, look, they won't make eye contact. The body language, right? Shoulders around it. They're not really making eye contact. They don't even really want to lift their heads. Or maybe they're in detox. Maybe they're withdrawing and they feel terrible, right? Or they're ashamed and they're breaking down, crying in the room, things like that. And then you can fast forward to a week or two, and it can be an entirely different person. All of a sudden, they can have just a new energy about them. Maybe they're smiling, right? Or at least they're not crying. Or maybe they do have someone that's there to help support them that even just a couple of weeks before wouldn't really talk to them because they didn't trust them. Look, I can happily give you some of my favorite success stories if you want, or I can just tell you what success looks like in general.
Give us a couple of your favorite success stories.
Okay. So I'll give you, this one's my favorite. And by the end of it, you're going to know why. So I can use his name, Eric, because he is very public about this. So Eric came in, we'll call it 2.5 years ago. And this man was overdosing basically weekly. I think his overdose count is around 20 something amount of times he has overdosed. And he was abusing anything that he could get his hands on. It was opioids, it was methamphetamine, it was alcohol. He was really, really far in. And he had legal troubles, and he had a counselor, and his counselor recommended him to come to Renew Health. And he says that move saved his life. And so very quickly after getting him into treatment, the man's been sober ever since. So well over 2 years.
Wow.
His mother told me that prior to coming in, she was terrified to go to sleep every night because she didn't know if the next morning, if her son would still be on this world, on this earth. And now she says, hey, look, I'm not afraid anymore, which I think that's so powerful. I'm not afraid anymore because he's doing so well. And so as he progressed, got through treatment, or he's still in treatment, but as he progressed on his journey, all of a sudden you start seeing this just infectious personality, his charisma. The guy it truly is infectious. He's an incredible person. And he's going back to school and he's getting a job. And then all of a sudden you start seeing like this business side coming out. He's wanting to be an entrepreneur, and he's like pinging things off of me. Hey, Trent, what do you think about this? And I'm thinking about doing that. And, we would talk. Anyways, he is now employed full time by Renew Health. He's a full time employee of mine. I ended up hiring him, gave him a job. He has moved up in the company and he is absolutely killing it. I mean, he's one of my favorite people ever. And now he's benefiting me. I mean, he's growing the company. He's helped spreading the word to save other lives. And he's just an incredible person.
I think I have a couple podcasts about that drive that has people getting whatever substance will heal that pain, or they believe will heal that pain, is very similar to the entrepreneurial drive. That when you want it bad enough and you see the light to get it, you will do what it takes to get there. It's a matter of switching the focus, moving them in that direction. So what does the clinic do well that you think had that effect on Eric?
So real quick, I think it's funny that you just mentioned that, because I was looking at my personal website in the background here. 3 weeks ago, I did a blog post on exactly what you just said. It's called Entrepreneurship as Recovery. But what does the clinic do well? Well, first of all, everybody that's in the clinic is very passionate and truly cares. Okay, look, so real quickly, just on me, I'm not a former addict. I've never struggled or suffered in that. Look, I have plenty of faults, but I've never once slipped on that. Okay, I don't have anyone that's close to me, a loved one or a really close friend, that's struggled with severe substance abuse. So I do this because I want to, because I truly am passionate, because I care. And I think that in itself is infectious. And when you lead a company, I think that it comes from the top down. So if if your boss is really mean and hateful or unsupportive, that's kind of how the other folks are going to act, right? And that's just not the way that Renew Health is ran. I'm very particular on who I hire, and everybody there needs to be supportive. They need to make these patients feel confident that they're in the right place. They need to make them feel comfortable, that they can be trusted. And I think first and foremost, that's the most important thing. And then, there's no judgment, there's no stereotyping. We meet them where they're at. And every single treatment plan is tailored to that individual. I, myself, or one of my other providers truly take that time, listen to them, and devise a treatment plan that's going to work best for them. Now, we're not always 100% right out the gate, but that's why we have these follow-up appointments, right? Because we can learn from these mistakes or setbacks to where we can revise, adapt, and make changes moving forward. And we're very successful at it.
What about those? So Eric came in of his own volition. I'm assuming that that's how most people come to you.
Mm-hmm.
What about those that don't want to be there and they see this as the solution, and that, this is not worth their time?
So I'll tell you that those individuals, unfortunately, are not as successful. You've got to have internal motivation. You're going to have the intrinsic want. And I actually mentioned this in my book, The Recovery Tool Belt, that'll come out next week. Whenever I have a client, a patient, potential patient come in, and they'll say, look, I don't really want to be here. I'm here because otherwise she's leaving me. And they kind of point at their wife or something like that. I feel like they'll show up at first. And then once, that example that I just gave, the spouse maybe takes a step back and is not quite harping on them as much, and they feel like they've got some breathing room, very rarely do they show back up. Now, that's not 100%, because I also see it where maybe somebody doesn't want to come in. They don't think that they need help or treatment, or maybe they've tried and failed in the past, and it's kind of this feeling of, I've been there, done that. I don't really want to go through it again. But then all of a sudden it starts to work, and they do come back, because now they start getting these new things in life that are valuable, whether it's the spouse that is now seeing that they're working on themselves and they start to support them, or they're able to, get a new job and maintain it, or someone that hasn't wanted anything to do with them will now speak with them again, or whatever. They just feel better, right? They're not out hustling. They're not doing the drug seeking behaviors that often comes and accompanies addiction. And so these things become very valuable. And then that does become an internal motivator for the person. So yeah, I see that all the time too. They don't want to be there, but then a month later, they're like, shh, I've never missed an appointment, man. This is where I need to be. This is a game changer.
She's speaking to me again.
Yeah.
So the family member, what are you saying to the family member during this first month when they're relieved that they're there, but they know they've possibly been through this before, or they've heard the promises. And how are you helping the family member contribute positively rather than negatively?
Yep, great point. So they have to remain positive. They have to be that support system for that individual, even though I understand it can be extremely challenging because maybe they've done it a dozen times and they feel like they've been failed every time, or maybe they've been stolen from or whatnot. Whatever it could be with that certain dynamic. So you can continue to protect yourself, because I think that if you're a family member or a loved one or a close friend or something like that, you still need to protect yourself, but you have to show that support to the person that's working on it. Look, if they're making these appointments, that's a tremendous step. Even
Mm.
if they go home and they're only doing half of what was told or prescribed to them to do, look, it's still they're trying. And so that is progress. That's the little wins that we need to celebrate. And so there's a whole list of things like that I think that loved ones support systems need to recognize. Hey, while it's not happening as either as quickly as I want it to, or as large of an amount as I would like by a certain time frame, it's still progress. It's still a win. That person is trying and they're heading in the right direction.
How do you begin to normalize for the family that this isn't a one and done? The kids aren't going to be fixed. The mortgage isn't going to suddenly get paid. Everything's not going to come around completely just because the substance has stopped.
Yeah. Everything takes time. Anything worth working for takes time, right? I mean, so I try to make it relatable. And this is where getting to know that individual. So let's say if we're talking about this in the initial visit, or even if it's like the first follow-up. So they had the initial visit, and then we talk about it, they come back next week. We're kind of talking about what has happened over the past week, right? But if the patients come back, that there is at least a little bit of commitment to try to get on this journey forward. And that's where you can really also talk with family here and get a feeling for where they're at and how they feel. And I try to get stories out of them. I try to find out where that person's at in their life, and then that way I can kind of mold the scenario that I'm trying to give to that family member or that support system to make it relatable to them, if that makes sense. I don't have an example right offhand, but so just like I need to know the patient's story so that I can tailor their treatment to them, I try to do that same thing, especially if it's a loved one that's going to be showing up routinely, because then I know what's valuable to them, what's important to them, and I can relate that to these little wins that this patient is having.
Yes. Let's switch gears and talk about that high functioner, the person who probably has a job, who may be teaching Sunday school or offering some club things, but they are doing what they thought started as recreational use, but it has become a problem within the family. How do you deal with the silence? How do you deal with the fear of, oh my gosh, we could lose our standing in the community, we could lose our job, house, all those things?
So we very much respect privacy. I think everything has to be confidential here and private. And if they're not willing to share with their family, whoever it is, we're not going to either. We're going to respect that patient. So as you were saying this, I did have one patient pop into my mind here, and that's really what we've done is we've kind of gone above. I mean, everything's confidential to begin with, but we've gone above and beyond to respect that privacy. As a matter of fact, he travels where he's located. There's a clinic right down the street within a couple miles from his house, but he travels probably an hour and a half, maybe close to 2 hours to go to another clinic because he doesn't want to take a chance on being seen in the parking lot or someone in the lobby, things like that. I don't know if I answered your question directly there.
So there's often this huge stigma, and maybe the close and the close know, but everybody else doesn't know. And it could be very damaging to the family, their economy, all those things. The travel makes sense. How else do you support them? Because we know that secrets keep us sick, but everybody doesn't need to know everything that's going on. How do you help
Sure.
them draw that boundary, those lines, get the help that they need?
Yeah. Okay. I understand the question better now. So that's, look, we have counselors and cognitive behavioral specialists on board too. That's not what I do. I just want to go ahead and preface with that. And we would definitely get them in tune with them to work through that because that can be very challenging to try to navigate. And, maybe there are people that they want to let know, but not right this second, more so when the timing's right. Maybe once they've taken care of whatever it is they're dealing with and they feel that they're in a different spot or they're more comfortable with it. And I think that would be the approach that we would take on that.
So talk to me about how you are. I mean, obviously you have a brick and mortar, you have a building. How are you serving people? Do you do Zoom? Do you do other things outside of that? Or are you just a walk-in, we want to see you face to face?
Yep, love it. So we actually have 3 brick and mortar locations. We're slated to open 2 more, possibly by the end of this year, which would put us at 5 if we're able to do that. But yeah, telehealth. So I mean, it's HIPAA compliant telehealth that it's so similar to Zoom, but it's not through Zoom, to where we can treat anybody in the state. So we touch all 4 corners of New Mexico. At this time, we're only in New Mexico, but we service people that are 5 hours away from us. And look, for someone that is maybe on the fence about doing telehealth, but they're unsure, like, oh, it's just not going to work for me. The quality of care is not the same, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm telling you, we've thousands of people have successfully been treated through telehealth, just through Renew Health. Um, while we're not able to shake hands or give a high five or hug or something like that, it's the next best thing, especially like because New Mexico is so vast. It's such a rural area. If you're not living in Albuquerque or Las Cruces or one of these bigger cities, then you may have an hour drive just to really get to civilization, and
Mhm.
you shouldn't allow that to be a barrier to treatment because there's telehealth. I can treat you right there at home. Look, you can be in your sweatpants. I don't care, and you don't even have to get off the couch, and we're taking care of you.
How do you know? I never
Yeah.
get out of my pajamas. I just put on from the top up.
Smart. Hey, I might be doing the same thing right now, but it's true though. And so that's an amazing way to bring treatment into your home, into someone's home that needs it. And it's very, very successful.
So I'm a mama, I'm a wife, I'm a girlfriend, and I know this needs to shift. What's my best avenue for talking to my loved one, for possibly saying, hey, you don't have to commit to anything, just talk to Renew Health. Don't go any further than that. How do you even coach people to bring that up?
So every scenario is a little different, meaning like the individual, how receptive they can be versus how much they're going to push back, right? I love to say the first visit, we don't even have to talk about treatment. It doesn't have to be going and getting treatment. It's just feeling it out, right? It's getting educated on maybe something that's available, resource wise, that's available that maybe you don't know about. You don't
Mm.
have to commit to anything. Obviously, let them know that there's privacy and confidentiality and the whole 9 yards is there. Another barrier could be cost, right? Well, we take every single insurance that's in the state. If you're self pay, we're going to work with you, especially if it's just that first visit and you're really just trying to fill us out. We may not even charge anything at all. So that eliminates cost. If you're worried about someone seeing you, we can do telehealth, right? You could prop up a phone or a computer and you can have your whole crew there and you got 10 people sitting behind you and we can talk to you with everybody else back there to where they're kind of chiming in their questions too. And so I think that that's a real good way to take some of the pressure off.
Mhm.
It's go ask your questions, poke them, see if whoever you're talking to, let's say it's me, see if I've got the answers that you're wanting. How do I treat you? How do I talk to you? Do I have the knowledge that you're, not wanting, but you're expecting? I truly see that initial visit with every single patient as an interview. Those people are interviewing me. They don't want me to have the answers. They expect me to have the answers. They expect to be treated humanely. They don't want to be judged. They don't want to be made to feel bad. And so I see it all as an interview. And anyways, I think that that's a good way to approach your loved one is, hey, just try it out. Literally, there's zero pressure there.
And what will you speak to the loved one without the person they're concerned about?
Depends. So let's say a loved one reaches out and this person that we're talking about is not a patient. Of course I will. They're not my patient. I don't know them. So this is now talking about a situation that's going on. Okay. If I've got a patient that wants their information to be confidential, absolutely not. I would never talk to anybody because, well, HIPAA violation and, you know, just the trust that I would breach. Now, there's no way I'd be able to effectively treat that patient moving forward because I just killed the trust that we had.
Mhm.
Now, if the patient was okay with, let's say it's the spouse or I don't know, an employer or something.
Child or somebody, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, first and foremost, I'd communicate that with the patient and the patient would have to approve of it. And then absolutely I would speak with them.
Do you have a set up family program? It sounds like you do.
So we do, it's slightly informal at this point. It's something that we're very much wanting to build out on. Um, I've got licensed and experienced individuals that are remarkable that do help with this, but I want to have something that's more formalized to where we do have a better step approach to this, to where it's a little more systematic, to where, because right now it's kind of, if you get put with this person or this person, we're taking their approach on how they like to treat or do these things. And so I want to come up with more of a, like I said, like a Renew Health systematic approach for this. So the answer is yes, we do, but we're also working to try to build that out.
Awesome. All right. Tell us a little bit more about the recovery tools, the book that's coming out.
Yes, the recovery tool belt. So it comes out Thursday, July 3rd. So we're, I think, 6 days away at this point. Look, this book it's awesome. So obviously I'm biased. I wrote the book, but I'll tell you, it's a very easy read. That's intentional. There's no big words and medical jargon in it. That's intentional. As you can probably gather just from our communication here, look, I talk just like a normal human being. I don't try to sound crazy intelligent and use these massive words that nobody can understand because that doesn't do anybody any good. And so the book is written the same way. So it's not dry, it's an easy read. There we go. This book is for the individual that's struggling. It's for their loved ones. It's for someone that knows somebody that's struggling, whether it's just a friend or a spouse or whatever. It's for somebody that maybe they themselves have never struggled. Maybe they don't know anybody that's struggling, but they're seeing it in the community, or at the least, they're seeing it on the news all the time and they kind of want to better educate themselves. This book would benefit them too. I'll be honest, this book would benefit clinicians that maybe don't treat this type of patient population real often and they want to learn more about it. This book would benefit any of those. It's full of tips, tricks, science back approached, evidence based. I truly believe this book is going to save lives.
Now, we didn't talk about this, but you do have a degree from Baylor in neuroscience. Did I read that correctly?
Not Baylor, University of Cincinnati.
Okay. Early career at Baylor's neurology department and trauma. You are trauma informed. You are trauma informed because that's what we're finding, is a lot of the addiction is because of early childhood trauma. How do people get in touch with you? Because you can service anybody in the state of New Mexico, is my understanding.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the website, so first of all, you could just Google Renew Health, but the website is renewhealth.com. Statewide number is 575-363-HELP. And any of those are going to get you in touch with Renew Health. If you're looking to reach out to me directly, me personally, maybe something that's unrelated with that, I do have a website, thetrentcarter.com, where I have a personal blog that I post on and things like that. It's got the book on there, the recovery tool belt. But next week, the book will be everywhere. It'll be Amazon, books.com. I am going to record it, so we'll have an audio version on Audible, things like that. That's not out yet either, obviously, but hopefully within the next couple months it will be. But yeah, we try to be easy to get a hold of. And especially if you're someone in New Mexico that's struggling and wanting help, just go to the website. There's so much information that's on there. Just about any question you would have about addiction or treatment or what Renew Health does or how to go about help, or, hey, what's the process? How do I get started? What's it like? What insurance? All of that is on the website. And even if you're out of state and we can't treat you because we're not in the state that you currently are, all that information's free. It's on there. Just poke around. Take a look at the blog that we have on the Renew Health website. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of blogs about all kinds of topics.
What would you say to somebody? What's something they can do today if they're concerned about somebody else? What do they need in their tool belt that they could pick up quickly from your blog? Where would you send them right away?
First and foremost, I'd say buy the book, honestly. Get a hold of the book. I mean, I'm serious. I go over all this in the book. There's so much information. I mean, like the easiest thing for me to say is you got to be active, get active, meaning if you're sitting around thinking about it, it's not doing a whole lot. You need to actively try to, whether it's put yourself out there, actively seek information, actively try to get help for this individual. You've got to take action. Which again, I go over in the book. But if you're looking for a one-stop shop, truly the recovery tool belt is going to go over every bit of that. Otherwise, if you're not looking to do that, yeah, you could go to the website Renew Health. We have tons and tons of information on there, or just Google. There's so much free information available right now. Honestly, you spend a little bit of time digging into whatever it is you're curious about, and you can get quite a bit of knowledge there. I will say, be careful on being a Google doctor, meaning you look at a few things and all of a sudden now it's, you feel like you're an expert on it, because there's a lot of conflicting information out there. I'll tell you that any information you'll find on the Renew Health website, we have 100% done the best of our ability to bring you the factual and evidence-based information.
So wind us up with another win, another positive story.
Another positive story. Okay. This one's, I mean, it starts off almost a little comical. So a new patient comes in, and she was going to be my patient. And so anyways, they get her in, she fills out all the paperwork in the front, or maybe she'd fill it out beforehand. I'm not sure. Because that's another option. You can actually fill out all the paperwork before you ever come into the office. Obviously it shortens that wait time. So anyways, my medical assistant tells me the patient's ready. So I'll knock on the door, and I open the door, and because I always knock before I go in, and this woman is what I called starfish. She's laying face down on the floor, and she's got her arms and legs out, and she just, as her mouth was kind of crammed into the ground, she just said, because I walked in, I said, "What's going on?" And she just said, "Miserable," because she was detoxing. And so the mom kind of laughed, and she said, "Yeah, she's through detox." I'm like, "Well, I know exactly what she needs." I mean, the conversation was very short because I knew exactly what was going on. I saw her drug test. I knew what she had in her system. So we got her going on treatment. The next, there was no need for a 45-minute drug out conversation. First of all, she was never going to tolerate that, right? So we got her going pretty quick within just a few minutes. Next week, she comes back in. I didn't even recognize her because I never really saw her face the first time. She comes walking in. She's got makeup on. She looks pretty. She clearly is feeling much better. And I'm like, "Well, hey, nice to meet you. I'm the guy that you met last week that you never saw." So anyways, within 1 week, she's obviously feeling much better. We can fast forward now. It's probably been at least 9 months, clean, sober. She's doing great, maintaining a job. CYFD is a program down here that whenever you start to get in trouble with your children, they may possibly get removed. CYFD was involved, which of course they're still involved. Her children are living back at home with her. She's done a complete 180. And, it's just funny that the day that I met her, I mean, she's literally in the middle of withdrawal and feels terrible. Surprised she even made it in. She felt so bad. But now we fast forward almost a year later, and her whole life has turned around. And look, that story, it's almost a dime a dozen. We've got so many stories. I mean, I've got one in particular where the father came up there to the clinic, and he asked the receptionist, he said, "Hey, I'd like to speak with Trent." I'm like, "Oh, well, he's talking with patients right now. But if you can wait a minute, we'll see if he can get a couple minutes to talk with you." So anyways, I finished up with what I was doing. I said, "Yeah, absolutely. Love to talk with him." So anyways, he comes back and he said, "Hey man, I just want to give you a hug, if that's okay with you, because you saved my son's life." And I said, "Well,
Oh,
hell yeah, bring it in, man. I mean, I'm all about it. I mean, I like the physical touch." And so, I mean, we hugged it out, and he kind of started crying on my shoulder. And, his son's alive today. So
man.
we've got tons and tons of, this stuff works. So if you're somebody that's listening that, again, you're on the fence, maybe you've tried treatment and it's failed. And I don't care if it's been, 6 times and it's failed. Don't give up. I'm telling you, there's so much help out there. The stuff works. Maybe just where you were at that time, maybe, whatever was going on in life, or maybe whatever clinic or provider you got with and y'all didn't vibe well. I mean, there's all these scenarios of the what ifs, maybe potentially why it didn't work. Don't quit. There's so much out there. I've seen it thousands of times. It works, and you can turn your life around.
And for the loved ones, don't quit. You may have to set some boundaries. You may have to love from a distance, but don't quit. Don't give up on them. I
That's
love
exactly
the starfish story because of your flexibility. You didn't stay locked in this certain protocol. You didn't say, oh, I have to do 45 minutes with somebody who cannot function at that level. You did what needed to be done. And then hopefully when she came back a week later, she's able to sit in a chair and face you and see what's going on.
That's exactly right. A testament to what I said earlier. We take it to them. We bring it. We meet the patient where they're at. She happened to be face down on the floor, starfished out, but she got the treatment that she needed right then, and that was only just a few because we knew what was going on. It's, hey, let's get you out of here. I'm sending the stuff off, Mama. If you want to take her home, get her on the couch, then run by the pharmacy and pick it up. She's going to be feeling better by tonight, literally. In the next couple of days, she's going to be a totally different person, and she was. So.
And I'm sure this is for another podcast. I'm sure you talk about in your book that people use drugs because they work and because they seem to solve the hurting problem, not because they don't work. So that's the shift, is looking, where's the hurt? Where's the pain?
That's exactly right.
Trent, thank you so much for being here. I want you to give another shout out for your book, where we can find you, and that if I hear you correctly, anybody in the whole country is welcome to call you and you can help them to a point. But if you are in New Mexico, you are the man to call. You've got opportunities for them, either telehealth or come into the clinic. And it sounds like you are just spreading, I hate to say wildfire, because in Colorado and New Mexico, we don't want those. But you are spreading so that you can reach folks.
That's right. We are trying to grow and trying to expand because we want to help as many people as we can. And so, the Recovery Tool Belt is the name of the book. Again, it comes out next week. It'll be everywhere. I think most people do Amazon. That's probably going to be the easiest, but just about any website that you may purchase books on, it'll be there. If you're a Kindle reader, there's just an electronic version too. You don't have to buy a physical copy. There's definitely the electronic copies where you could do your Kindle or whatever those various ones are. Again, soon we'll have the audio version. But if you're not interested in that, renewhealth.com, there's a ton, just a massive amount of information that's free that's on the website. And if you're looking to inquire about yourself or about a loved one, someone that needs help, then you can hop on the website, or the phone number is 575-363-HELP.
Trent, thank you so much. Appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Faith Over Addiction podcast. Remember, nothing changes until something changes. Today is your day to step out in faith and make a difference. You are a daughter of the King, a woman who can spark incredible ripple effects of hope and healing, not just in your own life, but in your family, your community, and God's kingdom. If this episode encouraged you, bless someone else by sharing it. Send it to a friend who needs a little hope, or post it on Instagram and tag me. I'd love to hear what resonated most with you. And hey, if you're ready to reclaim your God-given identity and create a safe, loving space for yourself and those you care about, let's talk. Book a quick call with me today, and I'd love to hear your story and help you take the next step. Oh, and don't forget to head over to Apple Podcasts, search for Faith Over Addiction, and leave me a review. Your feedback not only makes my day, but helps other women find this podcast and step into freedom too. You are strong, you are loved, and the joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Until next time, keep walking boldly into the life God has for you.